Lost characters. They are characters we haven't seen in years to even decades. A lot of these guys will give you nostalgia, such as Nickelodeon stars, whom have some really unfortunate backstories and careers. From child stardom to tragedy, these are some of the most tragic lost Nickelodeon characters slash stars. I love you guys. Get this video to 5,000 likes if you want a sequel, and subscribe, and let's get right to it. Sam from iCarly. In 2007, actress Jenette McCurdy acquired the role of Sam Puckett in the Nickelodeon TV series known as iCarly. In the early 2000s, Jenette McCurdy tried to appease to her mother by taking various small acting roles. Finally, with iCarly, she was a main character underneath a show that was being ran by Dan Schneider, one of the top creators of Nickelodeon at the time. For many, given the opportunity to work with Dan Schneider was an opportunity not to pass up. He had just finished Drake and Josh, was in the middle of airing Zoe 101, and was also the creator of The Amanda Show. His credentials knew no bounds. For Jenette McCurdy, whose mother desperately wanted her to be an actress, she thought she couldn't pass up this opportunity. Unfortunately for her, her time in iCarly would be one of the most miserable periods of her life. iCarly lasted for 6 seasons. With each season, we'd see Freddie, Carly, and Sam grow up. The series was widely successful. I mean, I don't have to tell you that. Sure, I could go on and on about the iconic episodes from the show, but there would be really nothing else to state. You know how fun it was. You knew how chaotic it could be. I mean, we all remember Spencer, with one of my favorite gags, him pulling up to the apartment with an ostrich. It was a random show that came out at the perfect time, where random was the humor. Not only that, but I believe the show coincided with the rise of YouTube during the late 2000s and early 2010s, with the show being about web shows at a time where web shows were the next big thing. However, by the fall of 2012, the show had run its course. I mean, it had 6 seasons and a movie. I mean, dude, they had I Go to Japan, with the production of this movie only lasting around 4 to 5 weeks. They really went hard with this. With I Goodbye in 2012, it was finally time to say goodbye to Spencer, Carly, Freddie, except Sam. So here's the thing about Sam Puckett. She was a popular character, and a really good character at that. Her personality entailed of being aggressive, tomboyish, and having a lot of authority over a lot of people in the show. She was mean, lazy, but also kind to her friends. Sam Puckett was so popular that in 2013, Jenette McCurdy agreed to appear in a spin-off series titled Sam and Cat.
We have a new TV show, and it's not lame. It's called Sam and Cat. I'm Sam, she's the other one.
All of this in order to please her mother, who demanded her to still be an actress. To many, they thought Jenette McCurdy was living the teen star dream. I mean, she got to dance with Michelle Obama, her face was plastered on lunchboxes, cups, all sorts of things. The truth is that Sam and Cat was just a perpetuation of a living misery. When it came to Jenette McCurdy and her mom, their relationship was deeply abusive.
You say quite frankly that this was never your dream. Stardom was never your dream. Whose dream was it?
My mom's. I think she wanted me to have a better life than she had, but I also think her approach was very unhealthy and informed by her own lack of self-work, and she lived vicariously through me.
McCurdy came from a poor family, struggling in Garden Grove, California. In order to pay the bills, she had to act. Her mom would be violent and erratic, but not only that, when McCurdy was age 2, her mom was diagnosed with cancer, adding stresses onto the family. McCurdy's mom wanted to keep her as a child and introduced to her the idea of calorie restrictions, essentially starving McCurdy in an act of trying to keep her, in her mind, beautiful. With the pressure of her mother's illnesses, this led her to reluctantly sign on for Sam and Cat. She starred along the future pop star, Ariana Grande. It is there where she grew a deep jealousy against her co-star, jealous of her upbringings, with Grande being the daughter of a CEO and starting her music career early at the age of 14 when she first arrived at Los Angeles. Something I have to mention was that while McCurdy was a teenager and at the height of her stardom, she was forced to start a music career that she really did not want. She couldn't help but keep comparing herself to her co-star. Why did she have a successful music career? Why did she have a good upbringing? And why is she succeeding way more than she is, even though they're the same age? Those frustrations were valid. With everything going on, with the pressure from your mom, how could you not compare yourself at such a young age? However, another one of the most traumatic events that happened during her portrayal as Sam Puckett had to do with the one known as Dan Schneider. There are many allegations that have been shot at towards Dan Schneider, such as being a bully, being a creep towards the various girls, displayed all across his TV shows. McCurdy described Schneider as mean-spirited, controlling, and terrifying. At one one occasion, he pressured McCurdy to drink alcohol while underage. She even stated that while on set, he was able to make grown men and women cry with all of his insults. On another occasion, she stated that Schneider would even go as far as to provide an unsolicited shoulder massage while stating that iCarly kids were so wholesome. All this and more, she stated that her life started to spiral out of control. In 2013, her mother died from cancer, and in 2014, Sam & Cat was cancelled. Following her presence at Nickelodeon, McCurdy stated that Nickelodeon offered her $300,000 as a thank you gift if she agreed to stay hush about her experiences at the network, especially surrounding the behavior of Dan Schneider. To her, it felt like hush money.
I just said, no, it's not happening. That sounds like hush money to me. Not doing it, not taking it. And then I do remember leaning against, I think I talk about this in the book, but I lean against my bed and I'm like, well, shoot, that could have put my nieces through college. Like, that was some good money. But I am ultimately proud of my decision there.
After the end of Sam & Cat, Jenette McCurdy retired from acting. Dan Schneider would eventually be fired from the Nickelodeon network amid allegations of verbal abuse and questionable behavior towards younger stars. In 2021, many iCarly fans grew up, heading into their late teens to early 20s. It is in this case when Miranda Cosgrove was pitched for a new iCarly series. The show, which would now be aimed at adults, was later then pitched by Cosgrove to Jerry Trainer, Nathan Chris, and Jenette McCurdy. When approached, she turned down the opportunity as she finally believed she was happy and in a good mental place after years of torment. With nothing personal against Cosgrove, she rejected her plea nicely. The in-universe reason why Sam Puckett doesn't appear in the iCarly reboot is because she apparently joined a biker gang. While out on a girls' trip with Carly in the Pacific Northwest, she joined the Obliterators, the biker gang as mentioned prior. As for the character of Sam Puckett, I enjoyed her character quite a lot. Her zaniness matched the chaos of the show. It is no wonder that the character got a reboot of her own. But as for Jenette McCurdy and for what had happened to her, God am I glad the character of Sam Puckett has been retired. In 2022, McCurdy released a memoir titled I'm Glad My Mom Died, in which she rejects her mother for forcing her to be an actress and constantly pressuring her. She labels Dan Schneider in another name known as the creator and finally gets to speak her mind after years of constant abuse. Sam Puckett being gone is a blessing. For Mrs. McCurdy, she's finally at peace.
What would you have told your 20-year-old self?
Look at me now, baby. You're gonna be fine, kid. I probably would have said.
Steve from Blue's Clues. You know, when I was a young child, there were a couple of things that were a staple in my life when it came to staying home from school sick. Number one, Judge Judy would always be on the TV. And number two, if it wasn't Judge Judy, I'd be watching Blue's Clues as a 4 or 5-year-old. I'm sure you all remember Blue's Clues. It was an educational children's show that ran from 1996 to 2006, first being presented by Steve Burns. The premise of the show is pretty simple. There's a blue-spotted dog named Blue who leaves clues and paw prints for Steve and the viewer to figure out together. You might be thinking, there's not much else going on here, but trust me, this was a pretty big deal. In the early 90s, PBS was the dominant force in early educational children's television. By 1990, multiple parents and teachers complained about what they deemed as schlock on their TV screens targeted towards children. Hey listen, I think TMNT and Transformers are pretty cool, but you gotta keep in mind this is 1990 here. Much of the children's education these parents grew up on was like Sesame Street. As more and more violent cartoons came to release around the 80s and 90s, Congress eventually had enough. They implemented a law titled the Children's Television Act, which basically held networks accountable for the quality of children's programming or risk losing their license to even broadcast. This law was really symbolic and left it up to the FCC to determine what qualified as quality children television. Little quality improvements were made and left to a bunch of Saturday morning cartoons that parents hated to be released still. Parents got mad, believing there was a direct correlation between children's cognitive and learning skills and what they watched on TV. In the midst of all this anger, Nickelodeon was trying to find the perfect show for preschoolers. They hired a guy named Todd Kessler who had worked on Sesame Street before but didn't like how it was formatted, believing it was too static and not visual enough. Nickelodeon wanted to take a chance with Kessler and kick over the table and try something new, as they were interested in providing programs that would actually benefit preschoolers rather than entertain them. All of this based on research that they studied of parents of preschool children demanding their children watch something educational. Nickelodeon also hired 2 other creators, whom all met, trying to create something very simple and graphic, but also slow and new. It was really incredible of them, actually, because they wanted to respect the child and to help them feel empowered when it came to their brain. They created a colorful character named Blue who would help the viewer figure out puzzles. Originally conceived as a cat, Blue ended up being a female dog. What would come next would change everything. wanted. To the creators, the most important thing would be the casting of the main host. Someone who would make the kid feel welcomed, who would make them feel like they could do it. But not only that, most importantly, someone the child could connect with. Enter Steve Burns. You know, originally, the producers wanted a female host. They went through over 1,000 auditions. Why did Steve Burns get the role? Well, it was simple. He knew how to connect with the child. When it came to the test scores of a young audience, children would identify with Steve the most. It was funny. When he auditioned for his role as host for Blue's Clues, he modeled his audition after Christopher Walken. He came to the audition room with long hair, an earring, with Nickelodeon executives really not wanting him to get the role.
We couldn't go in and model this long-haired skateboarding guy, so we made a little secret phone call. Wear a button down or something a little bit more conservative.
Do you have access to a hairdresser? Can you not look like you tomorrow morning?
Thanks, bye.
And where he lacked in appearance, he made up in personality. Apparently, out of all the people they auditioned, Steve Burns was the most realist and down-to-earth one. On September 8th, 1996, Blue's Clues premiered, becoming the highest-rated premiere out of any Nickelodeon program at that time. The success was basically instantaneous, being described as a cornerstone of Nickelodeon's educational programming, all really thanks to one guy who knew how to speak to an audience. By the end of 1997, it was the third highest-rated show for children's public television, right behind Barney and Arthur. And not only that, it was the highest rated show for preschoolers. It was insane. Approximately 13 million kids would watch the show every week. That's a lot of minds being developed by one guy and a blue dog. One of my favorite memories from Blue's Clues was the mail time song. I just love the way how he says mail at the end.
Here's the mail, it never fails. It makes me wanna wag my tail. When it comes, I wanna wail.
He was pretty charismatic. I loved him so much as a kid, and I mean millions of others did as well. He was kind of like the modern day version of Mr. Rogers. In each episode, he would stop and take notice of the viewer entering his house, treating you as if you were one of his best friends. The house would become iconic, because throughout the episode you go through various rooms and collect 3 clues, developing problem solving skills, and also being thoroughly entertained. So you got it. The show was innocent. However, with such innocence, it was super easy to try and make the show much more darker and chaotic than it actually was, as was the case in the early 2000s. Online, people would lampoon Steve Burns as it was such an easy topic to make fun of. He was so nice, so to try and be funny, people would make games in where you would kill Blue and Steve, and also make terrible fanfictions that were horrendous. Meanwhile, although the show was a hit, Steve Burns himself felt clinically depressed. He described himself in an interview, stating that he was the happiest depressed person in North America. He was struggling with severe clinical depression the entire time while on the show, and it became impossible when it was his job to be utterly and completely full of joy and wonder at all times. He would cite that he left Blue's Clues because he was losing his hair and didn't want to wear a wig on television. However, that was only a little bit of the battle. On April 29th, 2002, Steve introduced a new host as his younger brother named Joe. Underneath the shadow of believing he could not make a lifelong career entertaining little kids, Steve left the show, with the in-universe reason for his departure being that he was heading over to college.
Thanks again for all your help.
It was sad Steve was gone, and the way this transitioned into the playground, well, I remember this. I remember walking around the playground, and then some kid would come up to me and be like, "Oh, did you hear? The actual actor Steve died in a car crash." Another kid would state, "Oh, he died in a drug overdose." Another kid would say, "Oh, he was killed by the producers because he didn't want to be part of the show anymore." The rumors surrounding Blue's Clues got to Steve, so he went on Rosie O'Donnell's show to dispel the rumors and basically say, "Hey, I'm not dead." After Blue's Clues, Steve joined a psychedelic rock band, becoming the lead singer. A crazy fate for a children's host. However, by the late 2000s, the world started to believe once again that Steve was still dead. For some reason, it was ingrained in many people's heads that Steve didn't just simply leave Blue's Clues, he died, which really started to get to Steve, stating that he thought the world would prefer that he was dead, and he was starting to take it very personally. After his music career failed to ignite anything significant, he disappeared. For years, people wondered what happened to Steve, but eventually, in 2017, Nickelodeon made a call towards Steve, asking him for insight of a reboot of Blue's Clues. Many years had gone by, and he was ready to help out an old show that made him famous. So Steve helped out the new host for the reboot, and even agreed with Nickelodeon to even guest star every now and then on the show. Steve had finally come back, but here's the thing, many people still thought he was gone. Finally, in 2021, Nickelodeon posted a tweet that went incredibly viral.
I just kind of got up and went to college. And that was really challenging, by the way. And then look at you, and look at all you have done, and all you have accomplished in all that time. And it's just so amazing, right? I guess I just wanted to say that after all these years, I never forgot you. Ever.
The years had gone by. He looked older, he had lost his hair, but it was still Steve, wishing you well after all this time. Although the actor had to face his trials and handle rumors of his own, he was there with a warm smile, as if he was talking to an old friend. That old friend being you. Drake Bell. While technically not a lost character, he's definitely subject as an individual with a lost career. If you ever rewatch an episode of Drake and Josh, you might can't help but think, damn, what happened to this guy? Because what Drake Bell did was pretty horrific. Drake Bell started his career at the young age of 5 years old. At a young age, he found himself attracted to acting, making small appearances in 90s sitcoms such as Seinfeld or Home Improvement, and also even appearing in a Pokemon Red and Blue commercial in 1999. This was not the extent of Drake Bell's talent, however, because by the age of 12, he learned how to play the guitar. Eventually, Drake continued climbing that ladder, as from 1999 to 2002, he appeared on The Amanda Show, a comedy sketch show similar to the vein of SNL, but for kids. It was there where Drake excelled and really showed his comedy chops. He was often paired up with another actor by the name of Josh Peck. Going back and looking at these old clips, god, the chemistry they both had was incredible. Just between you and me, however, I've always thought Josh Peck was the better comedian. Dan Schneider often paired the two for a reason. It was no wonder that when Nickelodeon asked Schneider to make a new buddy show for them, the two of them being cast was a no-brainer. On January 11th, 2004, Drake and Josh premiered on Nickelodeon. Side note, watching this premiere is one of the earliest memories I've ever had. Me and my brothers were absolutely obsessed with the show. It was a sitcom about two stepbrothers who lived in San Diego. Drake was popular but dumb. Josh was smart but awkward. Drake was a musician and knew how to talk to girls, but Josh was the spiritual guy. They also both had a biological sister named Megan, who was Miranda Cosgrove before iCarly ever premiered. Each episode would begin with a cold intro that would revolve around a general theme of the episode. It would display the dichotomy between Drake and Josh.
I just think Josh needs to appreciate me a little more, you know? Because if you ask me, his life is way more fun when I'm around.
And then, right after the code intro, the theme song would play. Titled I Found a Way by Drake Bell, it was one of the catchiest songs on all of Nickelodeon. I have a lot of nostalgia for this. And say what you want about Drake Bell, and trust me, I will have a lot to say about him in a bit, but this song is still, honestly, pretty good. It's fun and wholesome, and I think it really matches with the show, as when the series progressed, the both of them kind of flipped. Josh got cooler, while Drake got goofier. Each brother would retain a life lesson, and Megan would be, well, Megan. The series was incredibly popular, being the top-rated live-action series among children ages 2 to 11 years old. In fact, it had its highest ratings ever in its final season. So why did it end? Well, Dan Schneider just simply thought the series had run its course. He was ready to start iCarly, but not before dropping one of the greatest films of all time, Merry Christmas, Drake and Josh. During Drake Bell's tenure in Drake and Josh, he released a couple albums, trying hard to enter the music sphere. In the United States, he did alright, every now and then going into Billboard's top 200. However, in Mexico, he did pretty well, reaching number 4 at his height. This would eventually foreshadow his later career. In fact, in 2008, he went on tour and managed to sell out 5 nights while there. This was likely because Drake and Josh was very popular in Latin America, in fact, also having a really good dub of the show. Trust me, while visiting Mexico when I was a kid, I remember watching it there and thinking, hey, this is actually pretty good. The years after Drake and Josh had Drake Bell leaning towards his Nickelodeon roles. He played a live-action Timmy Turner, while also appearing in some schlock animated role. In contrast, Josh was appearing in bigger roles, such as in Ice Age, Red Dawn, alongside multiple TV series. Every now and then the two would see each other at events and take an occasional photo. Everything was in harmony, all until 2017 when Josh Peck got married. Josh decided not to invite Drake to his wedding, leading to Drake to tweet out, "When you're not invited to the wedding, the message is clear. True colors have come out today. Message is loud and clear. Ties are officially cut. I'll miss you, brother." Immediately, backlash went against Josh Peck. However, not long after, to mend their differences, Drake and Josh reunited again for a YouTube video to basically say, hey, there's no drama. Even better, in 2019, Josh and Drake announced that they would be seeking to revive Drake and Josh. However, they had some creative disagreements. Josh wanted to call the show Josh and Drake. He proposed the idea in the show that Drake would be a failed musician and Josh in the show would be a real estate agent. The show would be much more adult, with Drake mainly having issues of being displayed as a failed musician, as he thought it was a total parody of his actual life. Apparently, the pilot script also had Drake performing at a quinceañera for the daughter of the biggest drug kingpin in all of Mexico. A lot of the Mexicans apparently would then proceed to take copious amounts of alcohol and ingest other illicit substances. Drake Bell stated that he didn't want to take part in this, leading to the end of the revival. However, the cancellation of a revival of a former TV show was the least of Drake Bell's worries. In the years following Drake and Josh, Drake found himself in legal trouble. In December of 2015, he obtained a DUI in Glendale, California. In 2020, Drake's ex-girlfriend accused Drake of being a verbal and physical abuser all throughout their 3-year relationship. But in 2021, it got even worse. In June of that year, Drake Bell pled guilty for the attempted endangerment of a child. According to the Cuyahoga County Prosecutor's Office, the 15-year-old victim, who had established a relationship with Bell several years prior, attended his concert in December of 2017. While there, Bell violated his duty of care and, in doing so, created a risk of harm to the victim. The police department also found that Bell had sent the minor inappropriate social media messages for months leading up to the concert. With Drake Bell being 31 at the time, the minor accused Drake Bell of assaulting her while she was underage. Bell was sentenced to 2 years of probation and 200 hours of community service. Jesus Christ. Following the charges, Josh Peck decided to distance himself from Drake by stating that the both of them were never ever really friends. Josh would go on to state that him and Drake never saw each other for 10 years after the show, which was completely false and easily disproven by many photos seen of the both of them just chilling out. They had a lot of YouTube videos together, and like, dude, Josh, just be honest, just say you don't want to associate with them anymore.
I knew that Drake and I didn't stay in touch for the 10 years since we had made the show, but no one needed to know that.
Drake Bell flushed his career down the toilet, and that was his fault. One of the only major things he does now is starting a podcast with his wife, in where he frequently states he wants to be friends with Josh again. Josh, on the other hand, has recently appeared in the film Oppenheimer in one of the most significant roles. Once they were buddies, but no longer buddies due to the terrible actions committed by one of them. It is in this case that Drake Bell's career and his friendships are lost. Amanda Bynes. Throughout this video, we've been looking at child stars. Some child stars grow up to have some long and successful careers. Actors such as Kurt Russell or Elijah Wood are able to adapt and not find themselves to be typecasted into a certain role. Others could become musicians like Ariana Grande, or more recently, Olivia Rodrigo, who grew to prominence during her teenagehood. But then you have the other ones who don't make it. Some of them continue on to live normal lives, satisfied with the fame they once had, but are able to move on from it. While others, who suspected they had a career lined up for greatness, lost themselves by the time they got there, via substance abuse and their own mental baggage. This is the chaotic and downward story of Amanda Bynes. Amanda Bynes was born on April 3rd, 1986, and from the age of 7, she began to professionally act. Growing up in the greater Los Angeles area, she found herself in multiple stage productions. From the get-go, she had fantastic talent. As a young comedian, she knew exactly how to make the crowd laugh at a young age. She would go to a Los Angeles Laugh Factory camp, and where she learned from the greats, and was discovered at a young age by Dan Schneider. She would appear in multiple Nickelodeon shows, such as Figure It Out, and all that, until finally in 1999, she got her own spin-off comedy, The Amanda Show, a show based all around her. She was the character. I mean, of course, it was a sketch comedy. She would play multiple characters, but at the end of the day, it all really relied on her as an actress. Amanda Bynes was multiple people at once, and at first, it was rewarding. She would win Kids' Choice Award after Kids' Choice Award. In 2002, she even made her first movie debut in the film Big Fat Liar, starring right next to Frankie Muniz, one of the biggest child actors at the time, for playing Malcolm in Malcolm in the Middle. Her trajectory was going upwards, and to make things even better, by the time she was 21, she was ready to start her own fashion company, something she had always wanted to do since she was a kid. did. Everyone was talking about her. In 2003, she was in the cover for Vanity Fair, and she was locking down role after role. At this point, people thought she wasn't meant to be a child star. She was meant to be one of the most promising actresses of her generation. However, just as things were getting good, in 2010, at the age of 24, she announced her retirement from acting. Wait, what happened? Well, in 2010, while on the set for the film Hall Pass, she allegedly would come to set fueled by paranoia and fearful of things around her. She quit production of the film, stating that she didn't love acting anymore and that she no longer wanted to be in the spotlight anymore. For 2 years, people didn't hear about her until 2012. In that year, she became reckless, obtaining multiple DUIs and even multiple hit and runs. In 2013, she was charged with reckless endangerment and substance possession after she was found smoking in the lobby of a Manhattan building. This all tallied up until finally, in the spring of 2013, she had started a small fire in the driveway of a stranger. Her mental health had completely deteriorated, with Amanda Bynes' parents filing for conservatorship in order to help manage Amanda Bynes and her finances. In the couple years following, she would make bizarre tweets about Germany in the 1940s for whatever reason, as well as accusing her father for abusing her as a child. She would later go back against these comments by stating, "The microchip in my brain made me say those things, but my father was the one that ordered them to microchip me." Soon after she made that quote, she stated that she was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. In the years following, Amanda Bynes became better. In 2018, she went to the internet and stated she had been sober for 4 years with the help of her parents. She felt ashamed and embarrassed with the things she had said and wished she could turn back time if she could. In February of 2022, Bynes filed to end her conservatorship with her parents, with them supporting the action. However, the route to healing isn't always perfect. In March of 2023, Bynes was placed under a 72-hour psychiatric hold after she sought a bystander for help and called 911 following a mental episode. But here is what shows progress. She sought help. I see people who still make fun of her these days for what's happened to her, but honestly, when it comes to her mental health, she's been seeking to improve it for years. Bynes has not appeared in a film role since 2010's Easy A. In 2018, she announced she intended to return back to acting, however has not appeared in any roles since then. In March of 2023, before her mental episode, she was cast to reunite with a bunch of stars from the All That cast at a 1990s convention. Apparently, she loves meeting fans. It's one of the things that keeps her going. From a woman who used to have her own show and who was once destined for acting fame, she's doing all that she can to get better. And maybe in that way, she hasn't lost herself, but really just trying to find herself once again. I've been Zeep. Subscribe and like. I love you guys. Until next time.